We back on the scene. What's
Back on the
going on, my
scene.
man? Yeah. Well, it's your two partners in crime once again. Virgin Dame just kicking it here.
Man,
Once again, though, we're on some hot topics, man, right? Some hot topics right now.
man, stuff is on fire out here in these volleyball streets.
In these volleyball streets, it's on fire. This portal went live and went crazy. I
Yeah,
think they
man.
had more people in the portal this year, this time than they did. I think about 50% more than last year, man. It is getting
Yeah.
wild. And just seeing some of the names in the portal is getting
hmm
wild. So first of all, shout out to everybody. Once again, it's Volleyball Dads. Make sure you can email us at vballdads. No, I'm sorry, Volleyball Dads Podcast at
Yep.
gmail.com.
Yep.
And then hit us on X at vball dads
Yep.
as well. Those
Instagram,
of you who
Vo-
Instagram.
Volleyball Dads
Uh,
Podcast.
yep,
Um,
we on video there, and also
Follow us on
YouTube, right?
YouTube, Volleyball Dads Podcast.
Follows it. And guess what? You can be on the show with us too. Just
Absolutely.
email us, DM us. We can hook you up. We got right now the building be remote, so you can
Yep.
be around the comfies of your home. You could be at your college campus. You can be anywhere you want to, but we can be right here filming you live. So once again, join us on the cast as well. But man, we got a lot to talk about. Well, we don't talk a lot about the portal. I mean, the transfer portal today. I think it's just open here as
Open
we
flame.
taped,
Yeah.
and you know, it's the most important thing right now.
Absolutely. I mean, you got a lot of kids that are, starters, played a lot,
A
leaving.
lot
I
of
think,
freshmen, a
you
lot of
and I
freshmen. I
discussed,
was
yeah, you and I discussed some kids that were doing well. I think a lot of things we realized, or what we can assume, is that because kids can commit starting in June and can't visit till August, I think the pressure to commit in between that time frame and potentially losing out on some opportunities maybe force some kids to not make an informed decision. And therefore, they've gotten on campus, connected with the coaching staff or not, and have decided to make a mass exodus, is what it appears. And these are kids that played as well. Like you said, a lot of freshmen, which is awfully strange a lot of times, but a variety of reasons. I think the landscape of college sports has changed so much, and I think the pressure to win now has
yep,
increased that. And it's basically coaches are seeking, when they finish up their season and if it didn't go the way they wanted it, and with the portal dynamic being what it is, they see opportunities to snatch up players who could possibly help them now. And it's you never know, but a lot of coaches are seeing the success that the SMUs have had recently, San Diego a few years back, how they've gotten 1 year rentals with grads having years left, how they can be successful right away with 7 and 8 transfers. The
yeah,
drawback
and
to
you just
that
can't knock.
is you
Yeah,
don't
no,
really
you
get to
can't even
build a
knock.
culture,
Yeah, and you just can't
and
knock
so
at San Diego's and SMU's. I mean, Texas has done it. We've
oh
seen
yeah,
that.
well they wanted to,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and
But the thing about the Texas, because of the brand, they're able to continue doing it.
yeah,
Whereas, if and they've kind of loaded their cupboard in advance, so you have the players there as well, on top of bringing in the transfers that are playing over the players that are there as well. And if those players decide to stay, it just makes a more competitive gym.
mhm,
Whereas, no, not knocking it all, but trying to duplicate that year after year becomes challenging. Grabbing one or two is one thing, but grabbing 7 and 8 and having to repeat that
yeah,
formula each year, you're
yeah.
hoping you strike that lightning in a bottle. Um, you still have the teams like Pitt that have they may get a transfer here and there, but for the most part, they're organic. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is what we have. This is the world we live in. Um, Well, even last year, Tennessee, they lost like 7 kids, but they brought in about 7 more, and they made a tournament again. So the formula works. If the kids can play, and the coach knows how to draw up X's and O's, and has a good culture, and they've deemed to be a good coach, kids will want to play for him. But where
Right.
does the education? Because they still say student athlete in the front. But it doesn't appear that that's being the case here
Right.
lately, the last couple of years. And even we thought that it was going to slow down a bit with COVID year going away, but that's not the case.
I think it just been picked up. It just
It
picked
picked
up.
up. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the whole college landscape, because it's changing so much, and the money's in college sports. So we even touched on NIL that's driving a lot of this too, right? Because the NIL is driving some of these decisions too for these kids to pick up and leave. But I also think that, conference realignment plays a lot in it. Now
Hmm.
you got, and I was worried about, this whole travel from East Coast to West Coast, West Coast to East Coast. I
It's been
think
fine.
has, makes people, who are new to school just like weary, right? Of all the
Yep.
travel and the long hours, uh, whether you really have time to really study.
Go to
Because if they
class.
went there still to make sure they got the student athlete part of it, it
Yeah.
gets harder a little when you're on the road 3, 4 days because you're changing 3 time zones, right?
And then you got to come
But
back and go to class. If you're
come
not
back to
online.
class or come back and get back in the gym, right?
Yep.
Come back in and go to practice even. I've had coaches after games, heard that, they go straight to practice after because they mad they lost. I mean, it's a whole different, mantra, man. But it's interesting to see just some of the names are in the portal.
Yeah.
Uh, who we don't know. I don't know at least. I'm sure we don't, but there,
All right.
reasons why they're in the portal.
I mean, you got kids that are
Um,
still playing that have entered. Some
yes,
some
yes,
grad
yes, which
some
is
grad
crazy.
transfers, and so
Yes.
it leads you to think, well, was there some communication beforehand? Because you got some people that are already landing, immediately once they hit, it was just a foregone conclusion where they were going to go. Um, Especially with a lot of
Yep.
these grads.
Oh yeah,
Um,
with the grads, and they probably jumping in just to make sure that somebody else don't get the spot that they wanted to get to. It could be some of that. They
well,
knowing
the
that they're
spot was
going to
already
leave no matter
promised.
what, huh?
The spot was already promised.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always promise stuff, and it's just different, man. But looking at it from that, and I'm looking at those young ladies. So you touched on 2 points.
Yeah.
One was these freshmen who are leaving or sophomores even that are leaving that got recruited early, maybe not when had a chance to go see a school or visit before they made their commitment, and now
Hmm.
they having second thoughts, buyer's remorse, however you want to look at it, right? And same thing with the coaches, right? They thought they saw something 2 years earlier that didn't materialize. Well, guess what? They got an option to get a transfer so they can go now, right?
Yep.
Versus waiting.
Yep.
So, and I think some coaches take the perspective of if their program is down in the dumps, throw it all out and bring in a whole bunch of transfers, especially in a nice city, and see
Yeah.
what happens. And we
So
see
so
it not
then
only in volleyball, we see it in football. Where the portals become a strategic message, but when you're getting recruited, I think the difficulty is are young ladies now going into the portal thinking or going into school thinking I'm gonna spend a year here and move on. You know, how
it
dangerous is that in
yeah,
that philosophy too?
because now we're anticipating only 18 roster spots. And so even if you're thinking about NIL, only so many schools got, I guess, a surplus that's
Right.
dedicated to that. And I think sometimes in some places they're being misled because I'm hearing stories where kids are saying, this is not what I was told when I arrived of what I was going to get as it relates to NIL. And let's be honest, I mean, volleyball is not typically a driven sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, it's typically been known about the scholarship and whatever stipends they would get. But now with the, the lawsuit, which they still aren't sure on how it's going to all play out in 25,
Yep.
26. And so a lot of coaches have jumped the gun in having looking at their rosters and so forth, but they want to take advantage of the portal. So
Right.
if kids have been injured and stuff like that, they're basically told, hey, you don't have a spot here anymore.
Right.
In a lot of places, unfortunately. And so they got to
Yep.
figure out what their next opportunity would look like.
Right.
Or, I've never understood how a coach could tell a kid that they can't compete if they're truly, saying they want a competitive gym. And
Yeah.
but then you have some instances where those coaches didn't recruit those kids. We've seen a lot of change at the helm
Yep.
at a lot of
Right.
places, and so we've even seen where kids were made all conference and stuff like that, and they just said that, hey, you're not a fit for us, and
Right.
the kid had to find another home. So
Right.
it's crazy to think because again they constantly use the moniker student athlete,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're there to supposedly to get an education first, but that's not really what's at stake anymore. A lot of kids have a desire to play pro, and while it may be a decent living, I mean, I always looked at choosing a school as a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision.
Well,
And
yeah.
and so a lot of that's being stripped away from kids
Yeah.
who really were looking to be at schools, and they chose because you had kids chose schools and chose to continue to go to schools even when there was a coaching change because that's the school they wanted to be at.
Mhm.
But sometimes when you're not their kid, you don't get the say in that. And then you got to rethink what it is you're going to do with your time as a collegiate athlete. So that's some of the reason why the portal is
That,
like it is. Um,
yeah.
there are a lot of kids may have chosen to get in the portal, but we've talked about this before. Quite a bit of kids were told, "Hey, if you want to play, you may need to look for somewhere else."
Right. Exactly. 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 I'm just repositioning myself around here,
Yeah.
man.
And
My
so
internet wasn't strong. I want to make sure I was here and blurry, so I'm a little further back to normal. But
hey, that's
with
good.
that said, you're right.
They can see the
Uh,
sweatshirt.
you see, switch. I got the Spelman on. I got the
There you
Spelman
go.
College on representing for my
Yeah.
oldest daughter. So and
ATL,
representing
baby.
HBCU, yeah, and ATL. So, but I look at it from like the college. If we take it from a college coach perspective, right? The transfer portal. What are they trying to get out of it, right? Is it
Mhm.
that you got to believe that some coaches they're like, okay, I can improve my team real fast, right?
Right.
And there's a good player out here, and I can get into the tournament, right? Get into that
Yep.
64, become relevant, at the end of
Yep.
the day, or win my conference, etc.
Yep.
But you also got to think about the coaches who are also maybe I won't say blindsided, but maybe looking at whoa, what happened to my whole team?
Yep.
That all of a sudden, or my three best players
Yep.
just decided to walk.
Yep.
You're sitting there like, did I do something wrong? Did I
Yeah.
miss the boat on something?
Yeah.
Or now they got to jump in the portal and retool real quickly too, and they got to explain why did these people leave?
Yeah.
You know,
A,
so
a lot of these
I'm interested. I
coaches,
think coaches are in an interesting dilemma now too.
well, when they have a lot of them when they have that approach, I don't think they're getting to know these kids. And they make a lot of assumptions, about the kids, whether it's their disposition, their demeanor, what have you. And then you look around, and so you haven't, if it's just been volleyball only and you haven't gotten to know them as a person, what makes them tick, you know, what it is they're looking for out of being an athlete, but also a student, the environment, how they, get to learn them as a person, what it is that make that particular person wake up every day and want to do this. I think a lot of that's being lost because it's become very transactional. I can
Yep.
say it's always kind of been that way to an extent. We
I
get
don't
it.
know.
They got,
I don't know. I think more in when we played like football and basketball. I think so.
yeah.
We understood that. Seemed
Hmm.
like in volleyball wasn't that relationship wasn't there more. It's more the nurturing. It's more the spending time, getting to know. And because guess what? As a football coach, you got 120 kids you're trying to
Yep.
get to know, right? You
Yeah.
ain't gonna know all of them, but you get to do it. Basketball, you may have about 20 kids or so.
Yep.
Volleyball, you still got 12. it seems like it's a way you can connect with them a
Yep.
little bit as more because you got a smaller team, but they may be having the same challenges and they're human too. And the
Well,
fact that now I always look at the powers reverse when kids
yep.
can say, see you
Yeah.
later,
Yeah. It works
you
both
got to
ways.
build a different relationship with them.
It works both ways. But that goes back to the getting to know during the recruiting process, right? If the pressure is on the silent kid in June and they can't even visit and come on campus and all we can do is have phone conversations or Zoom calls, that only takes you so far. Um, and if the kid can't, like, how do you commit and you've never been on campus, right? You've never been, you just know the logo. And so,
I
hey,
mean,
I
but
know this is,
and maybe that's what it is. People follow the brand,
they
follow the
do.
logo because it
Yeah.
happens, right? We see it
Yeah.
every year. It happens.
Every year, kids like, hey, I want to be four now. So I want to play in this conference, play in that conference. I want to compete at the highest level. And then you realize because you didn't really get to know that coach, it's maybe the school is what you thought it was, but playing for that particular coach or coaching staff, they may not have matured to the place of, developing the players, getting to know them outside of the sport. Like I said, it's become completely transactional, and that's tough for 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. Now, for the older kids that maybe are 1 year rentals who've been some other places, they get it. Hey, I'm here, do this, maybe get a master's certificate. Because again, that 1 year rental, a lot of them do that semester and then they're done. They're off to play pro or whatever. So it's really, hey, we're here to get as far as we can to attempt to win a national championship. That's their goal. You have some coaches that are still homegrown. They're developing the kids. They may get one or two transfers, and you got others that get seven or eight. And they got to constantly repeat that cycle year after year. While they are still bringing in some underclassmen and developing them, but eventually they got to see the floor to get that experience. And so, where do you find the balance in that, in getting them the experience that they need so they can develop and become those you know, fourth year players or grads or what have you that they'll be at, especially if they redshirted. Because typically what happens, they'll give them four, and then after their 4 years are done, they gotta, go somewhere else, unless they redshirted on the front end. So it's a challenge. Parents, educate your kids that this is now a business. It's transactional. Remove all feelings and emotions. You do still want to be wanted, and hopefully, you can prove that when you're there and you have the opportunity to get on the floor, and keep you around. That's
I mean, I mean, it's just a whole different dynamic now, right?
yeah.
And like I say, even from the recruiting aspects and stuff. So I'm looking at it now from a parent aspect, right?
Hmm.
If you're trying to make a decision where to send your kid,
Hmm.
every coach gonna say, "Hey, no, I don't think any coach recruit can say, "Hey, we're gonna have you here 1 year, then you're gonna probably gonna transfer for him." That ain't happening, right? Or,
Right,
"Hey, I'm gonna recruit you here, but guess what? I'm gonna probably bring in some grad transfers, so you might have to stay here a couple." Nobody wants to hear that, and nobody's gonna tell you that. So, from a
right.
parent perspective, you gotta start thinking about, I think, to yourselves and talking to your kids about, look, one, if this is a school you really want to be at,
Yep.
then you got to determine whether or not playing volleyball, if it's going to be your first priority, what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Be comfortable with the fact that you're going to have to compete every year. As we know,
Yeah.
but at any point in time, no matter how good you are, somebody may jump in front of you.
Yeah.
Just may happen.
Yeah.
Are you
And
comfortable with that? Do you feel
and,
good about that?
and I
Two,
think that goes back to some of the lessons you learn in club because you do have some coaches that still operate under that old adage of, you know, hey, when you're on the sideline, make sure you're clapping, you're smiling, you're always engaged. We don't want to appear that, you have an attitude or something like that. Because there can be some, like you can be extremely talented and there just may be some personalities that don't mesh, for whatever reason. Um, you're not in the gym with them 24/7, so you don't know. But I would never tell a kid how someone makes them feel or vice versa. I mean, and I think a lot of times because of the pressure of winning, at some places that the coach, may be on a short leash, or they're just looking for kids that want to feel like, hey, it's a privilege to be here, especially if your schooling is being paid for. Um, you know, act like you want to be here, and that looks different to every coach. You know,
What does act like you want to be here really mean? At the end of the
exactly.
day,
Yeah.
you're
I
there
mean,
because you want to play, right?
right. Yeah.
Acting like you want to be there is, I don't, it's one of those things like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You recruited me, I signed the letter. Yeah, I want to be here. Otherwise, I wouldn't
Right.
have did all that. So, what does act like it means? I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
like you're putting on the show for something. At the end of the day, what you want to do is, if everybody claims the meritocracy that they're supposed to be,
Right.
then let me compete and play. If you're telling me that, no, I'm gonna just go always go look for the new shiny ornament,
Exactly.
you know,
And that,
then what culture are you trying to build other than ins and outs?
absolutely. I think then that's when it goes back to if there wasn't a coaching change, then that's their kid. But if it was, that's where it's a slippery slope. Because again, your personality just may not mesh with them, and they're like, you know what, we may should go in a different direction. Or if you were hurt and stuff like that, which is typically before when a kid was hurt, because you can't control when injuries occur, and that's
Right.
that's that's a part of sports. If a kid gets injured and then told at the end of the season, hey, you got to look for another place. Well, what film does that kid have because they were injured?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it tough for them to even go somewhere else unless, a previous place that may have been recruiting or something like that are willing to take that chance. And then they want to know if they're healthy because then you look at the roster and you're like, well, can this kid come in and help? Because most of the coaches,
Right.
when they're in the portal, they're looking for someone that can come in and help them now. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so and it's you feel like, hey, are they telling me what I want to hear? And I get there and it's just like it doesn't mesh. You don't know. It's all a risk on both sides. And
And it's huge risk, right? Because
yeah,
what, 800,000 girls in the portal, and we know they ain't swapping 1,000 positions around there, right?
no, man.
So someone's just going to be either stuck out
There's a lot of people.
or disgruntled because got to go back to where they were,
Yeah.
and that's never a happy place sometimes, right?
Yeah. Well,
And then for those who do get somewhere to go, they still got to possibly compete because it's not guaranteed as well.
absolutely. I mean,
Could you
just
imagine be a
imagine a
grad
kid
transferring and not playing?
that's rare. I have not seen many, if any, that were grad transfers that didn't play.
Right,
Most
because
of them
that's
stepped
always you go with almost a guarantee. Yeah,
exactly, and that's really what's been told to you before you got there. And it's if we've watched some of these teams play that have gotten these seniors that have come in, and obviously a lot of these, especially with these COVID, now that's going to be gone, but you're still going to get some grad transfers because kids have maybe have redshirted before they finished in three, and so they still had another year to finish their 5 years of 4 years of playing. They'll go somewhere, and again, if it's a fifth year senior, their expectation is to play, more than likely start, and you might have had a kid that was busting their butt, and they just got recruited over and depending on the situation, they may have told him, hey, you may not compete for time. And how do you tell someone that before they even get in the gym? Other than what you've seen that person do at another place, but you don't know how this person's trajectory is going to be and how they're going to improve and how they're going to compete against the people you're bringing in. But we all know that coaches already have their picks a lot of times, and sometimes it backfires on them a lot. It
yeah.
doesn't pan out when they bring in those transfers. I mean, while SMU had a great year, I don't think they imagined that they would lose in the second round. Um, they're one of the only teams to beat Pitt and Nebraska as well. So, but it's volleyball and there's a lot of parity in it.
Volleyball, man. If the right team gets hot, I mean,
Mhm.
Missouri got
They're still rolling.
played well,
Now they
and
got Pitt.
and
Um,
yeah, now they got Pitt, boy.
and
Yeah, yeah.
the
We go.
Sweet
Yeah, we
16.
talk about this tournament here in a second too.
Yeah, yeah,
But for parents out there, I know who a lot of y'all listeners are parents and us. We appreciate that. Shout out to y'all as
yeah,
well. This landscape going a little rocky, I think, until it sells for next couple years. But this may be the new trend is that we're finding because if you're a freshman coming in, you can come from a high touted program or you used to playing. You get to a program where you don't play, it's your
mhm,
first thing to say, boom, let me get out of here.
yeah,
Or, if you're fortunate as a freshman and you are playing,
yep.
somebody
Could
else is knocking at the door.
Yep.
that you didn't that thought didn't think much of you when maybe you recruit, but saw you
Yep.
like, whoa,
Yep.
I want to grab this person. Then the current coach got to look at how do you keep you,
Yeah.
right?
They
So
gotta
how do you
recruit
keep them
you. They're recruiting you every day.
every
If you're
day
playing, they're
now?
recruiting you every day. And so if you're doing things that may tick them off, because kids are really emotional, and one bad day, and you got to think about it. As parents, you don't like your kids every day. You know what I mean? Like they make you upset, and they don't like us every day. And so,
Mhm.
but if you've established that rapport, you're going to reconvene and have those conversations about, hey, I love you, but
You
hey,
know, there's no transfer portal with parenting.
it's not.
Ain't nobody been take you for 18 years, whatever
Hey,
it is.
there are some parents that get rid of their kids.
Yeah, right. You might, the transfer portal is you going to college.
Yeah, yeah, but it is a big, even kids that think that they're really good, and they were good, 5-star kids, whatever, and they go
Yeah.
to a program that's loaded, and so everyone thinks, hey, I'm good, so doesn't matter what it is, and that person the year before was good as well. They were sitting in the same spot you were in, highly recruited or whatever the case may be, or maybe not, whatever they went to, it still was someone there before you, right? So you got to produce. Some kids at some point having had the opportunity
Here's
to
the
produce.
difference. Here's the difference. Hold that point there.
Yeah,
Before the transfer portal, right?
yeah,
You know, you if for somebody was you come in, you looked at the roster, right, and you saw a junior in front of you and a senior,
yep,
you figure, okay, I'm gonna have my chance in year two. They're gonna be
yeah,
gone. I'm rolling. You
yep,
only thing you can really do is recruit over me, right?
right.
With another talented freshman, but you kind of saw a path to get on the
Absolutely.
floor,
To get
even
on
if
the
you was
floor.
at a studded team like in Nebraska or something. Like if you come in
Yep,
as freshman in Nebraska and didn't play, you knew maybe about your sophomore you may have been playing, right?
right.
Now it's like, wait a minute. Somebody could come in my sophomore year and bump me, come in my
Yep,
junior year and bump me,
yep, yep. I
get
mean,
out now.
it's
And right, you're right, because if you ain't got no film on you, you ain't nobody seen you,
yeah,
you're 2 years still from when you played All-Star Club. A
yep.
lot of things, man. So I think man, it's a tough dynamic right now. And I
It's
think as
extremely tough.
recruits, are you coming in thinking as a freshman, I gotta find a place to play or I'm
Hmm.
going? And then the
Yep,
coaches think the same thing. If this freshman don't play, they're
yep,
going. But the coach is also thinking if this freshman plays and they dynamic and my
yep.
program is on the cuffs, they still going.
Hmm. I mean,
Possibly, right?
and then
And
if you
and,
hadn't
and we're
played
seeing
for it,
that now.
yeah, because you got a lot of kids that were highly recruited and they hadn't played for 2 or 3 years, and so then you get the speculation: why are they staying? Um, you know, people are putting their name out there. Hey, they should and even putting them at schools. Like this person would be great here, great there. And so the kids hear all the chatter, see all the chatter, and let's be honest, man. There's all kind of backdoor agreements, done um, pre-portal entry, where kids have kind of figured out, hey, where can I land, and so forth, and had people reach out on their behalf to say, hey, what does it look like, and so forth. I tell kids, go look at rosters. Look at the position you play. How many people are on that roster currently? What are their classification? Um, that's a big component to where you should choose to go. But as you stated, even when you do that, so say you go to a spot and they had a lot of upperclassmen, 9 times out of 10, that coach is like, I'm going to be looking for another upperclassman because I need someone with some experience because I got all these freshmen.
Right.
So I may let one freshman play with an upperclassman. Um, and then if that freshman happens to shine because we had some injuries, because we've seen it at some places like Florida and stuff like that, then they've cemented themselves. At other places, some freshmen may not have gotten the opportunity because they're behind a couple of grads, and that's just what it is. These kids have 5, 6, in some cases, 6 years experience because of the COVID year. They just got to wait their turn no matter what. Even if they are competing hard in the gym, that kid is like, hey, this doesn't make any sense for me to waste a year and get spotty minutes. So let me redshirt. But then they do that, and they're like, well, we're still going to go get someone else. And you didn't play
Well,
this
yeah, I
year.
mean, you're gonna always, unfortunately, not in this transfer unless U.S. The great Naval Academy or Army,
Yeah.
maybe or the Ivy League. You'll see me transferred up there at Stanford, all these exception schools. but you don't see a lot. And then, transfer from D2s to D1s. You'll see some of that as well, movement. But you're right. You're going to always now have this thing about it makes almost, I think, your freshman and junior year, I mean, sophomore year, especially your freshman, almost be a pivot, right? Again, because you play well, somebody else wants you. Easy to transfer. You
Correct.
didn't play well, got to get out, go and transfer.
Hmm.
Uh, you might have played well, but there's a star out there. Go come in and transfer. And Texas,
Hmm.
prime example. You know, it's starting setter, national championship. All of a sudden, you ain't playing. I mean, let's be real.
National
Love Texas
champion.
because I'm in here, but that's
You don't win
hard,
it.
I think, mentally even
Oh
for a
my
young
God.
kid like that. Like I said, it just these are just realities we're thinking about. And as in this podcast, we're gonna talk about some of the realities. Is that's a tough one, man. When
That's
you just
probably the
won a national
hardest pill to
championship.
swallow. You want to, I mean, like that's the goal, right? That is the goal to win a national championship.
You're
So,
a freshman, and see what happens. That's
and you know
that's
her
what a
psyche,
keeper
they
do.
tried to run a 6-2, but her psyche was off,
Yeah.
so then it justified them going to a 5-1 with the other setter because the consistency was off. Well, she was used to running a 5-1 initially. And so you went to a 6-2.
I mean, was that the case? Or
Yeah.
did another dynamic drive that decision? Right?
Well, you have a couple, like, so your expectation is what it is. You're coming off a national championship. You got a lot of high level players, and you're not playing at the level that you think that you should be playing at coming off. Like, they got hot at the right time last year. They went in as a 7th seed. They were serving bananas when they got hot in the tournament. They were an out of bounds shot against Tennessee to lose
Tennessee,
it.
yep, yep, yep.
Fingerhall hit that ball out. It was so close, and they would have lost. And then they won that, and then they went on a tear. They were serving like crazy. They served Wisconsin out the gym and served Nebraska out the gym and won the whole thing. So was that gonna? Then they picked up some high level transfers the next year. Um, you know,
Here's just my question is, and we can play coach, I guess, a little bit in there. What would have made me think I need another setter? Well,
nothing,
okay, I think about that, right?
nothing.
Something. What made you think about that? Because you didn't have to go that route, right? So what
No.
made you think? I'm just asking question. I don't know, but once again, you don't know what the coach is thinking at times as well.
Mm-mm.
But it has to also come back to the coach because at the end of the day, they made that decision after you won a national championship that you know what, freshman, you did a great job. You were injured. By the way, we still want, but I'm gonna get somebody else.
Yeah, and so first of all, you didn't think you lost both of your starting middles and your right side, so you knew that there was going to be some a curve. You knew that, but
You
then
can
you
go get your
see a
middle,
kid.
right? You
Yeah,
can go get you a right side, which you did, right?
yeah, they did, and then you say, okay, we had a middle. She waited her turn. Read her sophomore, she started, and then you let the freshman come and play. She had her growing pains, but she did fine for them. But then you get a setter that you were probably recruiting out of high school, but she chose to go elsewhere initially, and then hop in the portals like, "Ooh, here's an opportunity to get her again. We wanted her. She sets a great ball, runs a great offense. Let's bring her in our gym." And that's what happened. And
Boy, as we say, that's like loyalty.
it doesn't exist. I mean, it exists. When a program gets hot, because think about it, like before he won the year before, like he got hot and won back to back, but he hadn't won for a while, but he's won before. So you had other teams in that mix that were winning out, and you had some teams starting to climb, like the Pitts and the Louisvilles and stuff like that, which will be interesting to see, how Louisville will be after their seniors leave, and the freshmen will they go get enough because they did pick up a transfer to play right side, but she's splitting time with one of their sophomores. It the expectation is they may go get someone with some experience again, because they did 2 years ago when they brought in Looper.
I think all the blue bloods going to be able to get their pick of the litter in the transfer. This Sweet 16, as we're going to talk about in a second,
Yeah,
they're going to be able to go get some players that, to
yeah.
kind of re up again, right?
They're talking to
But
him
I was
now.
just scared, but you think about it, like I said, when you win like that and you have somebody as young as that coming in running offense, you just wondering what the other dynamic was because that's not a position that necessarily nobody would have thought you needed. And for you to not only switch it, not only go get it and switch it,
Yeah.
just says a lot. It's just interesting like that. Once again, you may see it now a new sophomore in the portal, right? Just because of that. But man, what's up with this tournament though?
Hey man, it kicks off tomorrow. You got the
Yeah.
Sweet 16. So you got Florida versus Stanford. You got Texas versus Creighton. You got Missouri versus Pitt. Um,
TCU and Oregon. No,
Oregon.
I'm sorry, Oregon Pitt. You're right.
So
Penn State and Marquette.
let's say the Marquette. Yep.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting. How about this Kentucky, Missouri? I still think Missouri's really overmatched there.
No, well, no, man. I mean, so they're in the same conference, and they played
Yeah,
tough. They had a five-setter
yeah,
to have a tie for the conference. If
yeah.
Missouri had won, Texas would have been tied with Kentucky for the conference for the SEC title. But Missouri lost, and they did lose a few games because they could have actually finished tied as well had they won out. But they lost two games towards the
Mm-hmm.
end, to Kentucky in the game before that. So
Mm-hmm.
it can go either way. It's at Kentucky this time, so
Yeah,
um, that's anybody's game, and that's a pick 'em.
that's
Um,
big. But no, hey, what about A&M, man?
yeah, well, they blew the doors off Arizona State, so they look good. They got Wisconsin though,
Okay,
so
I agree, but I didn't think they would beat Arizona State
they
like
got a
they
good.
beat
No,
them.
it was a good matchup for
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
It was a good
yeah.
matchup for them. Arizona State was another program that had a lot of transfers.
Yep,
Um,
yep,
it was a good matchup, and it was their night. Lednicki went off with like 27 kills, so now that looks different with Wisconsin because they're big block, and they played before.
yep.
While the score, Wisconsin won in three sets, but the scores were close. So,
Right.
while they did win in three, they still were close. So it's a possible. And they're back in Wisconsin again, and they're playing well as also. So, and if you had some time off, if they'd have
Yep.
played probably right away, as hot as A&M was, who knows? Because Wisconsin, they've had their struggles a few times.
Yeah, they
With
have a few
teams,
times. Yeah.
but they're still in the mix, and they're a big club. And so, if they got it rolling, they're in it. And then if not, then it can be a long night. And then
Yeah,
Nebraska,
I wonder if it's going to be any upsets in this next round. I mean,
of
of
course it
course, I think
is.
Texas A&M over Wisconsin would be one. You look at Florida, Stanford, still get edge to Stanford there.
Louisville
Um,
struggled with UNI. They went to
mhm,
five.
yeah,
They struggled with
yeah,
UNI. UNI, great ball control, well coached team. They always win their conference. They pretty much go undefeated every year.
yep.
So Louisville, I'm not looking at it. Who do they have?
Louisville has Purdue.
Mm, that's a winnable game for Purdue as well.
Yeah, it's
Because
winnable. I mean, you're right. You're so close right here, right? Because as we talk about Sweet 16, there's some room for some upsets.
we're going to get one.
Creighton could come and get Texas.
Mm-hmm. Creighton has only lost two games all year. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
And
uh,
I saw Pitt play Oklahoma, but it wasn't easy.
no,
But
no,
Oregon can give them a run.
yeah, it can go either way. But
Yeah.
Pitts, man, they like a well-oiled machine right now, man.
No, no, they turn it on when they need to turn on. I agree with you as well.
On
It's
all
like anything
cylinders.
now. You're gonna see a little bit more five setters, and when that fifth set, anything could happen.
Anything can go. Like you and I had, they were up in the fifth set against Louisville and served into the net several times. And so it was meant for Louisville to win. But that's when kids got that grit because a lot of teams in those five setters,
Yep.
man, get tight, the nerves, the fear of making a mistake instead of just playing loose. So Louisville showed why they are the one of the top four seeds by
Hmm.
pulling that off because you knew you were going to get the best punch from you and I.
Yep.
And so now they got Purdue.
Hmm.
And Purdue's probably happy for that matchup. They feel it's favorable versus having to,
Yeah.
to go against a Pitt in this round or say a
And
Nebraska.
but it is for Purdue because realistically, Purdue hasn't had a dogfight yet.
Not in the tournament, no. Mm-mm.
So
And
it's
that's
going to
something
be
in the season.
interesting coming to Louisville. I think when you get battle tested like that, you
Yeah.
kind of wake up. But you're
And
right,
they're at
get ball has
home.
some rest.
They're at home, so they might come out guns a blazing. I mean, because they're very capable, and,
Yeah.
and, and can and can and can blow the doors off of it. Or they can be in a tough one. It can go either
Yep.
way, but they've shown that they can win the tough ones. I mean,
Yep.
you know, that,
Yeah. There'll be some good matches starting tomorrow night though, and then
who does
then
Penn State? Penn State has Marquette.
Penn State has Marquette.
Yeah, so
Yep.
because Marquette
And
was,
like I said, with Texas Creighton, that's going to be Friday night.
yep,
So Kentucky, Missouri, keep an eye on that tomorrow
absolutely.
as well. And like I said, yeah, Penn State has Marquette. That could be interesting, but I
No,
don't know.
nobody should look past anyone.
No, you can't.
Um,
No, you can't. You cannot. So it's going to be interesting, man. I'll tell you that much. So, you know, it's going to be tough. Dayton playing Nebraska, right?
mhm.
Can't sleep on Dayton. It's interesting. I don't know if they're the luckiest one in this tournament right now, but can't sleep on Dayton.
No, no. At this point, the final 16, you can't look past anyone.
You can't look past them, all of them. I agree with you.
You can't.
This is going to be, like I said, I'll be interested to see Wisconsin and Texas A&M. And I think that if Texas A&M has a shot, they got to win that first set.
Yeah, you gotta put their backs against the wall.
Yeah.
They definitely have a shot. I mean, they're playing some good volleyball. Like I said, Lednicky went off. The middles are blocking well. They're connecting. They got a lot
That
of
lineup at Wisconsin ain't no joke, boy. That height is no joke.
no, no, and they'll be locked and loaded. They got a freshman setter along with Penn State dudes. So those kids have been playing
Hmm.
extremely well. So they're set up for the long haul for years to come. Um, Wisconsin may have some drop off next year, but they just picked up a kid out of the portal from transfer from Ohio State, a high level pen for next season. So
What, another transfer, another portal?
yeah, yeah. So those
Season
kids,
season ain't even done yet, and they're
some of
already moving.
those kids that came in that are coming in 25 that thought that hey they might have had a pathway because um, that Sarah Franklin was leaving, and then the kids they
Yeah.
have there. Well, you got that transfer that'll be a junior who has Big Ten experience to compete with. Um, they picked her up pretty quickly too. She entered the portal on the ninth, and she's already committed on the 10th.
Hey man, I
So,
wonder if anybody had a conversation with her prior.
man, the minute they saw her name ring, hey, Grace,
Exactly.
that's from
That we
Wisconsin.
saw the video.
Yeah, I mean they played against them, so they seen it firsthand.
Yeah, firsthand. Who gave you trouble? So
What we hope
it's
is though
interesting.
a lot of these kids in some of the schools that are in these conferences will see some of these kids that may have been looked past and know that they have the potential and they look to development and think that they can help their program. So some of those kids that have hopped in, hopefully that's what coaches will look at for you. Um, and you'll land on your feet to your new forever home. Um, because we know it can
Yeah,
be a challenge.
yeah. And I think that kids and parents have to look at volleyball with the perspective of, yeah, you want to have your kid in one place for a while,
Hmm.
or you want them to be happy wherever they're at. And we talk
That's
about the whole
first.
dynamic of it.
The mental
It's
health
hard
point.
when in sports now, these are business decisions now.
Yeah.
They're no longer, just school and field and
Hmm.
fit decisions.
Absolutely.
And that's gonna make it tougher. And unless you go down to some of these, and like I said, not the D2s and NAIA are not moving people around. They don't do it as often, but it seems like it's not the DNA of those cultures as well.
Right.
So it'll
Right.
be interesting to see where the movement happens. And I don't think any sport's going to survive, even volleyball, with people that constant movement, that constant drift. I
No.
think at some point in time it get tiring, and then kids are going to be like, "Well, I know what you're going to do in 2 years or next
Absolutely.
year because you've
Yeah.
done it before.
Yeah.
You've put somebody in front of me. How do you explain? Hey, you know, you had a freshman, setter, won a championship. Bam, that wasn't good enough for you. You flipped out and get somebody else, or
Yeah.
you had the outside playing well. They decided to say deuces to you. What was going on?
Yeah.
Um, you know, hey, you come from East Hollow Club. These girls expect to play. Have played every moment of every game for the last 8 years. You come in and say, well, you got to work yourself off the bench.
Yep.
They don't understand that no more
Yeah.
because
But
they never
a
had
lot
to
of them
do
will,
it.
a lot of them will say, because maybe they're hearing the right things in their meetings and stuff like that, and they just love the school and they love the camaraderie and they stick around. A lot of those girls that are in Texas and stuff like that, they could have probably exited sooner. Now, again, as we mentioned, that the roster is being cut to 18, and if someone's carrying 20 or more, some decisions are going to have to be made anyway. Um, and just imagine you've been somewhere for 2 years or so, or even longer, and Lord forbid you're in your major, because you got to look at how those courses will transfer.
Mhm.
You got to be
Transfer,
talking
all that. Yeah.
talking with admissions, and hey, look at my transcript to make sure everything comes over. Like, so there's a lot of decisions that affect these kids.
And we like I say, and we haven't even touched on how much the NIL impact may have
Mhm.
on some of these decisions people are making, moving around. People's going, it's at some point in time also it could be the haves and have nots.
Well,
And
that is
so,
NIL.
you know,
That solely is, the haves and have-nots. I mean, some schools have it, some don't. But there are only 18 spots, so everyone can't go to those schools who do have it. So there are other places, and there are different ways. They have the collective where, there's some people that help kids market themselves and so forth that may not be normally doing that themselves. You got to put in some work, but you have some programs that maybe not normally known for that, but are stating that to get kids in the door. And then when the
right,
kids get there, that's not what is happening. And so there's a
right,
disappointment in that. So I would say be transparent about the NIL component up front, but
yep,
it's easier said than done when you're trying to put a winning squad on the floor.
yep.
Um, Man, unless you're in these locker rooms and these meetings and listening to these coaches and stuff like that, all you can do is speculate. You hope that they're transparent and objective, and just any kid that tells you they want to compete and you give them a fair shot to compete, that's all they can ask for. And then if they don't get on the floor, what do I need to do to get on the floor? Tell me what I need to work on. And are you enabling me to put in the time to do so? Because a lot of times those kids are just standing and watching in practice. Well, you don't get better standing
Yeah.
and watching. So, you kind of casting people off in that capacity as well. So you're doing subtle things to make them not want to be there, as well, and so you're hoping that the kid will say, I want to leave. That makes it easier for you. Not, or, so it's tough, man, especially if you haven't developed a rapport. But if you have, then they may understand, y'all have been talking through it throughout the year. And so you kind of know where you stand.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, sometimes you may have just become now the real student athlete.
yeah, I don't know many true competitors that are going to want to watch for two plus years.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you've been, playing in whatever level, they're not going to want to watch. They're going to want to get on the floor. They went to school to
There's going
play.
to be that 10, 20%. I mean, there's going to be always a couple of kids who are there because this is the real school they want to be at, and they just got to understand what the grind of volleyball is, and they're going to be there. They'll be there for 4 years, sit the bench, play in screw up time, And yeah, there are going to be kids there as well, knowing that they see a different picture and what they want to be.
Yep.
Get it to them because everybody needs those kind of kids too. But we know just some of the, as we call the ultra superstars, the people who are just really top of the game. There's just going to be no more now options for these kids to move around,
Hmm.
and I think that's going to also drive some changes in the future. I think on the transfer portal. How many times maybe people can transfer. Who knows, right? A lot of different things is that. And I hate to see these kids just flip around the schools year to year. There's a few that are in the portal every year, it seems like, right? And moving around. So I don't know. I don't know what that shows or good for anything or even for themselves. So we'll see. But
We'll
hey,
see.
that's why we're here to talk about it, baby. That's why we're the
We will talk
volleyball
about it. Shed some
dads.
light on it.
Right, right. Don't forget, hit us up on Volleyball Dads Podcast at gmail.com. And we're going to put Damian will put out video on YouTube.
Yep. Please follow, like, and share on YouTube. Go to
Like and
where all the
share. Like I
podcast
said,
platforms are.
we love talking to each other, but we also don't mind guest hosts. And like I said, we have the capacity now to put you on screen and live with us,
Yep.
or as
We
we
got some
tape.
coaches coming up.
So yeah, we got a couple special guests coming up.
Yeah.
Scheduling now with the holidays coming up. We're
Yeah.
gonna get them in, fit them in, and looking for a good season. Then we're gonna be in right in the club volleyball, and that'll also be fun.
Man, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so with
Gonna
that,
be interesting. It's
it
gonna be
is, man.
interesting.
It's just as interesting as Portal that opened up,
Oh man, it absolutely is. I mean,
and
the only
seeing
only
all the
difference.
players that are in it. So hey, it
Hmm.
just like I say, it's interesting. We'll be seeing where they land. I guess we'll know where everybody lands by what January
Six.
6th. Is that when it closes?
Yeah, that's when it closes. Oh man, yeah, January 6th. The funny part about that is you got the dead period coming up on the 19th, and so they
Yep.
can't visit anymore. All they can do is have conversations.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so imagine if you didn't get your visits in between now and that time, and you're trying to land somewhere in the spring. You have another
Well,
little.
once again, it depends on those people who want to visit,
Yeah.
right? You see,
Well,
like you
well,
still got people that's going by brand.
they'll have another small window, January 2nd through the 6th, to take a visit or two, and then that's it. And you got to figure out where you're going by the 6th. So,
For those 500 girls who won't find a home that enter the transfer portal.
yep, they'll just have to re-enter in May.
And if they don't find a home, because the 500 that there still be 500 that won't find a home,
They may not be playing anymore.
exactly. Or guess what? Just understand it's a business, right?
It's a business,
It's business. So choose wisely. That's what
choo-
all we gotta say now is what? Choose
choose
wisely.
wisely. Absolutely.
That's what the volleyball dads tell you.
Yeah.
Choose wisely. Don't know. Don't know. Well, cool, Dame. Like I said, one more time for my Spelman College young ladies over there. Don't have, the
Right.
volleyball team over there, but hey, my baby girl's there,
That's
as
it.
well, my oldest girl there.
Yeah,
And
yeah. She's your
anyway,
baby.
yeah, always my babies. Got both
Yeah,
two of
yeah,
them there. So I'm
yeah,
hitting club scene one more time. Woo,
yeah.
this recruiting year is gonna be different. I tell you that. But
It'll
it's
work
all
out,
good.
brother. It
It
always
will.
does.
Yeah, all you
Man on the
parents out there
stairs
in the
got it.
same boat, same thing as well, man. And let's get some 18s on here. I'd like to get some girls from the 18s team just to get their perspective because
Absolutely.
some of them are unsigned. So it'll be
Yep.
interesting to see what they're thinking about now, knowing how
Hmm.
this NIL and this transfer portal works. So we'll put that on the schedule too to get some 18s we could talk to just to see what they're thinking as
Yep.
well.
Yeah, and get some of these parents that are dealing with that, the unsigned kids how things have looked and what they're thinking and their frustrations and so forth with the process and because a lot of them are waiting on what's happening in the portal.
Yeah, they are. They're waiting to see what happens to Porter, and a lot of them have to wait all the way to May
Yeah,
because of that, which is crazy, right? So.
crazy. Yeah,
It is
because you
what
need
it
to be
is.
doing admissions and stuff like
You
that.
have to find the plan B, A, B, and C by then. Yeah, yeah,
There'll be a
you're
lot of
right. So,
exceptions.
yep, yeah, yeah, that's true. All right, then. Once again, y'all, Volleyball Dads Podcast at gmail.com. You can email us. Check us out always on X and definitely on our podcast with V-Ball Dads on X and V-Ball Dads on Instagram, right?
Yep, Volleyball Dance Podcast. Yep, that's it.
This is it. Well, look up. You can find it's only me and Dan. You see the logo behind us. There's only two cute brothers out there.
It is.
That would be us. Holla at you.
Oh, peace.